Fahima, and I'm 17. For us, there's COVID, and like school is kind of different, and we talk about it a lot. So I was wondering, like during 9/11, was it like that for like other students?
My name is Lila Nordstrom. I'm the executive director of Sty Health, which is an organization that does outreach and advocacy work for the young adults who attended school during the World Trade Center cleanup downtown. And I'm also the author of Some Kids Left Behind, which is my memoir of that era and then the fight for healthcare that the community participated in following. I was a student at Stuyvesant High School on 9/11, which is a school that's 3 blocks from the World Trade Center. And so we had a pretty intense 9/11 experience because we had to evacuate our building on the 3rd day, and then we didn't get to go back to our building until October 9th, which was actually still too early because the World Trade Center cleanup took until the May of the following year about. I would say that there are some really strong parallels between what it was like to return to school after COVID or in the middle of COVID and what it was like to return to school after 9/11. There was all of this conversation about how much kids need normalcy and how important it is that we give them back their routines. And that was especially true for, the kids who had to evacuate and, who had literally run from the towers themselves. And so there was a huge amount of pressure to send our school back to Lower Manhattan right away.
It is my hope that in the months and years ahead, life will return almost to normal. We'll go back to our lives and routines, and that is good. Even grief recedes with time.
We were all really jumpy. Every time that like a car backfired or some other, loud New York City noise happened, the whole class would fall to pieces. And I think also, we didn't really know how to talk about what we had been through, so a lot of us just never did. Our high school did offer group counseling. I don't think anyone took advantage of it.
I was standing in physics class, and one building blew up, and then 15 minutes later, big shock, another building blew up.
I still don't know how most of my good friends got home that day because we don't talk about it. And as soon as you try to talk about it, everyone is immediately shut down. And I think that maybe our openness to mental health conversations right now is helping people think back on their time, during 9/11 and wonder if maybe they did need mental health help after that. But kids these days, really grow up in an entirely different school environment. I remember I had one duck and cover drill in my entire education. It was in elementary school. And now kids are having to do shooting drills again. And, that's in addition to the sort of overt layer of security that got added in a lot of places after 9/11 to compensate for risks that people felt around terrorism. There were a lot of people who lived in parts of the country that have never once thought about foreign terrorism, who started taking precautions, I remember at one point I was talking to somebody who taught in a school in Kansas, and they set up this whole emergency closet that had buckets for toilets and all this stuff that was all because they were afraid of a terrorist attack happening in Kansas.
My name is Nicole Perret, and I'm 21 years old. So I guess I'm just interested to see how 9/11 affected American society and before and after with the idea of patriotism and nationalism.
I think there's a difference between pride in country or patriotism and nationalism.
It's only going to make our country stronger. They haven't succeeded. They may have destroyed the buildings, but they will never destroy our country or our people.
The aftermath of the September 11th attacks certainly caused an upswelling of pride in America among Americans. And even I think a lot of the youth who had been youth back in the 60s and were now middle-aged, who had been against the Vietnam War and maybe weren't comfortable with the language of patriotism, swung around and began talking that way. in my own class on military history, I saw a huge change in the attitude of the undergraduates when someone in a class discussion would say they were ROTC, they were going into the military. The class would clap for them. And I can tell you that wasn't happening in the 80s and 90s.